Hello everyone and welcome back to my kitchen. For today's recipe, we're going to make homemade chorizo. For this recipe, I'm going to use 3 pounds of ground beef. You can also use ground turkey, chicken, or pork. We're going to start out by seasoning the meat with 1 tablespoon of salt. We're going to start out with just 1 tablespoon. And when we cook it, if we need to add more, we can always add more. When making chorizo, you want to pick the meat that has a good amount of fat. This one has 20% fat. You don't want it to have too much fat, otherwise when you cook it, it's going to simmer down quite a bit. If you want to add even more flavor to the chorizo, you can do a combination of beef and pork. Or you can also add in a few strips of uncooked chopped bacon. Once the salt is well mixed in, we're going to set it aside while we prepare the peppers for the sauce. To prepare the sauce, we're going to need 6 Chile Guajillos, 1 Chile Ancho, and a small handful of Chiles de Arbol to add a little bit of spice. The Chiles de Arbol are completely optional. You can leave those out completely or you can add less. I like to wash my peppers before removing the stems so we don't lose any of the coloring. We're going to start by removing the stem from the Chile Ancho. These ones are very hard and they're kind of tricky to removing the stem. Once you remove the stem, use the kitchen scissors to open it up to remove the seeds. These peppers don't hold very much heat, but they do add a lot of color and flavor to the sauce. Now we're going to do the same with the Chile Guajillos by removing the stem and then removing the seeds from each one. The Chiles de Arbol, we're only going to remove the stems. When picking out your Chiles de Arbol at the store, always pick the ones that still have the stem on. You can also purchase them without the stem, but I find that the ones without the stem, they don't have as much heat as the ones that do have the stem. Once we're done removing the seeds, we're going to take these over to the stove and lightly toast them. Lightly toasting the peppers first is going to enhance the flavor of the peppers. You can also soak them in hot water until they're nice and pliable. But I find that when you soak them in water, you lose a lot of the flavor in the water. So I personally prefer to toast the peppers. We're going to lightly toast them over low-medium heat for a few seconds on each side. Using a spatula, we're going to press down on the peppers until they become nice and fragrant and lightly crispy. I'm only doing a few at a time so I can keep a close eye on them just to make sure that they don't burn. Repeat the same process to the Chile Ancho and the Chiles de Arbol. The Chiles de Arbol, we're only going to leave them in here for a few seconds, and we're going to move them around frequently to make sure that they don't burn as well. Otherwise, the sauce is going to end up a little bit bitter. Your peppers should have a light crispiness to them. Now we're going to transfer all the peppers to the blender, including the Chiles de Arbol. And we're going to blend them dry for about 1 to 2 minutes or until you have a powdery-like texture. During the process, you may have to turn off the blender and move the peppers around so they all can break down evenly. Once you're done, you should have a nice powdery texture just like this. Once it reaches this point, we're going to add in the rest of the ingredients, which includes 1/4 of a white onion roughly chopped, 6 to 8 large garlic cloves, 1 teaspoon of peppercorns, 1 tablespoon of Mexican oregano, 1 teaspoon of coriander seeds, 6 to 8 whole cloves, 1 teaspoon of cumin, and to help blend the ingredients, we're going to add 1 cup of vinegar. You can also use apple cider vinegar or a combination of both. Blend on high for 1 to 2 minutes or until it has a nice pasty texture like this. Add in the ingredients from the blender to the meat. And using the help of a spatula, try to get as much as the sauce that's stuck to the side of the glass. If you feel that you need to add a little bit of liquid, you can add a little bit of vinegar to get the remainder of the residue. But try not to, because then it's going to become very liquidy. Once we have all the sauce in the bowl, using a wooden spoon or your very clean hands, mix until you no longer see specks of red in the meat. Once the sauce is well mixed in, it's going to look a lot more like chorizo. Now we're just going to cover it and refrigerate it for about 1 to 2 hours so it can marinate before we begin to separate it. You can use the chorizo once it's done marinating, but if you're not going to use all of it, we're going to separate it into 3 1-pound bags using Ziploc freezer bags. You can refrigerate one and use it within 5 days, and the rest you can freeze them and use them as needed. Before sealing the bags, make sure to squeeze out the excess air from the bags before freezing them. If you don't have a large family like mine, you can make smaller portion sizes according to your needs. You can prepare this once a month and use it as needed throughout the month. Making chorizo at home is so much better because you don't add any of the preservatives that they use when you purchase it in the store. I'm going to use my first pound of chorizo to prepare some delicious papas con chorizo. If you missed any of the ingredients we used while watching the video, you can also find a full list of all the ingredients we used in the description of this video. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, leave me a little heart. And make sure to share with your friends and family so they don't miss out on future recipes. And it will also help me out as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in our next video with a different recipe.